While seeking revenge, dig two graves, one for yourself. This could not be more true for the Merchant of Venice. William Shakespeare is one of the most notable figures of history, a prominent English playwright whose works have been read and studied by many. However, while William Shakespeare's many works are eminent, the facts surrounding his personal life are largely unknown. Most of what scholars know about Shakespeare has been obtained from his various works as well as official court documents collected from churches and courts. It is believed that Shakespeare was born on April 23rd, 1564, in Stratford-upon-Avon, England, a small town about 100 miles from London. The first tangible proof of his existence is a record of his baptism on April 26, 1564. Shakespeare was born to John Shakespeare, a recognized merchant and glove maker in Stratford, and Mary, the daughter of a wealthy family. His family lived a middle-class lifestyle for the time, and was well respected by the community. His father even had political ties, working as a bailiff and alderman at one point in his lifetime. Shakespeare's education began with his mother, the literate parent of the family, who taught young Shakespeare to read. Scholars believe that at around the age of 7, Shakespeare furthered his education by attending the King's School, a free charter grammar school located in Stratford. While attending, Shakespeare studied Latin and grammar, as well as performed in theater. Surprisingly, this charter school was all the more formal education Shakespeare received, as he did not attend college afterward due to his family debts and legal trouble brought on by Shakespeare's father. At age 18, in 1582, Shakespeare married Anne Hathaway, a much older woman than him at age 26. Together, they would have 3 children, Susanna, the first child born shortly after the marriage, and then Hamnet and Judith, twins born a couple years later. Sadly, Hamnet died at the age of 11 from unknown causes. From 1585 to 1592, Shakespeare virtually disappeared. Little is known about what happened in his life during this time frame. These years are collectively known as Shakespeare's lost years. Many stories have emerged about Shakespeare's life during this time, like the poaching of a deer, but these stories are mainly myth and have yet to be verified. Shakespeare's name reemerged in 1592 in a pamphlet written by John Green, who referred to Shakespeare as an upstart crow. Around this time, Shakespeare also began to appear on stage. It is believed Shakespeare's poetry and sonnets, which he wrote during the time of the Black Plague in England due to the theaters being closed, first established his name. In 1594, he began working for the Lord Chamberlain's men for Queen Elizabeth I, and following her death, the King's men for King James I. This company had the best actors, the best theater, that being the Globe Theatre, and the best playwright, William Shakespeare. To say the least, they were well known throughout England. A majority of Shakespeare's 37 plays would be written and performed by this company. Around 1610, Shakespeare largely retired from his work. He continued to be involved in theatrical performances, but his influence was less significant than it had previously been. Shakespeare mysteriously died on April 23rd, 1616, at the age of 52. He was buried in Stratford's Holy Trinity Church. After Shakespeare's death, Anne and actors who performed in Shakespeare's various plays collected scripts and notes to publish the first folio, a collection of most of Shakespeare's works, in 1623. During his lifetime, Shakespeare wrote a total of 2 volumes of poetry, 157 sonnets, and 37 plays. However, it is believed he actually wrote 39 plays, as 2 are believed to have been lost. Shakespeare is also known as the Bard, which means the poet. His legacy will surely never diminish. It will be continued by his works, which have been and will continue to be seen as classics. The Merchant of Venice was written circa 1596. The play borrows from a variety of works, the most notable being an Italian collection titled The Simpleton, which was published circa 1378. This work features a plot nearly identical to The Merchant of Venice. A friend of a merchant looks to marry a wealthy woman in Belmont, but he is in need of money to court her. The merchant wants to help, but lacks money on hand. Thus, the merchant borrows money from a Jewish moneylender. A contract is signed between the two, stating that if the payment is not paid back, the Jewish moneylender will get 1 pound of flesh from the merchant. I will not spoil the end yet, but it is nearly identical to the end of The Merchant of Venice. The Merchant of Venice also borrows heavily from The Jew of Milat, a famous play about a Jew seeking revenge on a Christian, which circulated theaters around Shakespeare's time. During the time The Merchant of Venice was published, anti-Semitism was widespread in England. In fact, Jews faced persecution for following their religion, and therefore very few Jews lived in England at the time, those who did generally posing as Christians. Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice is one of his most controversial works. Some have claimed it to be nothing more than an anti-Semitic play utilizing the stereotypes associated with Jews. If one were to look at the plot of the story and Shylock's traits as a character, like his supposed greed, this rhetoric would seem to be true. Others claim the play was Shakespeare's attempt to subtly dismiss anti-Semitism, as Shakespeare showed Shylock, the Jewish moneylender, in a human way. I will be performing Scene 1 of Act 3, which features Shylock's famous soliloquy, explaining why he is set on getting 1 pound of Antonia's flesh if the money Shylock lent him is not repaid. The Merchant of Venice is unpredictably set in Venice, Italy. Antonia, the Merchant of Venice, from which the play draws its name, is good friends with Bassanio, a gentleman of Venice. Bassanio is looking to court Portia, a wealthy woman from Belmont, but is in need of 3,000 ducats to make the trip to her. Seeking aid, Bassanio asks Antonia for a loan. However, at the moment, all of Antonio's money is invested in the shipping of goods. Thus, he lacks the money on hand. Still wanting to help his dear friend, Antonia agrees to borrow money from Shylock, the Jewish moneylender of Venice. Shylock and Antonia are not friends. In fact, they are almost mortal enemies. Antonia sees Shylock as a greedy Jew, set solely on making profits for himself, and so Antonia has been cruel to Shylock his entire life. Still, Shylock agrees to lend money to Antonia on behalf of Bassanio. As a joke, the two agree that if the loan of 3,000 ducats is not paid back in full within 3 months, Shylock will get 1 pound of Antonia's flesh. Strangely, Antonia signs the contract, even though Bassanio believes his friend should not sign a contract like that for him. Antonia is not afraid, though, as he is certain his ships will be back in 2 months with riches that will allow him to pay back the loan to Shylock. Some weeks later, rumors began to circulate that all of Antonia's ships have been unfortunately lost at sea. 2 of Shylock's friends tell Shylock of these rumors and ask if he will actually take a pound of Antonia's flesh if the loan is not paid back. This begins Shylock's famous soliloquy.
To bait fish withal, if it will feed nothing else, it will feed my revenge. He hath disgraced me and hindered me 500,000, laughed at my losses, mocked at my gains, scorned my nation, thwarted my bargains, cooled mine friends, heated mine enemies. And what's his reason? I am a Jew. Hath not a Jew eyes? Hath not a Jew hands, organs, dimensions, senses, affections, passions? Fed with the same food, hurt with the same weapon, subjected to the same diseases, healed by the same means, warmed and cooled by the same winter and summer as a Christian is. If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die? And if you wrong us, shall we not revenge? If we are like you and the rest, we will resemble you in that. If a Jew wrong a Christian, what is his humility? Revenge. If a Christian wrong a Jew, what should his sufferance be by Christian example? Why revenge? The villainy you teach me, I will execute, and it shall go hard, but I will better the instruction.
With the 3,000 ducat loan, Bassanio travels to Belmont to court Portia. In order to do so, Bassanio must take part in a game in which a suitor will choose one of 3 boxes, the option being a gold box, a silver box, and a lead box, and try to find the portrait of Portia. Bassanio chooses the lead box, which indeed holds the portrait. Bassanio and Portia are then married. Talk about true love. Bassanio thinks things are good until he receives a letter from Antonia. In the letter, Antonia explains that his business ventures have failed and how he will now die at the hands of his nemesis Shylock. Antonia informs Bassanio through the letter that this situation is not his fault, and there are no hard feelings between the two. Bassanio then hastily returns to Venice with Portia to attempt to save his dear friend. In Venice, Portia offers to pay Shylock the owed money, but Shylock refuses, bent on getting revenge upon his enemy who has wronged him many times. Word of this crisis spreads throughout Venice. Many people seeing Shylock as an evil and cruel man with no morals or soul. It seems no one but Shylock's own mercy can save Antonia. A court proceeding is arranged to decide the matter. Bassanio offers one more time to pay the money back, this time in double, but the stubborn Shylock still refuses. Then Portia, disguised as a wise young man of law named Balthazar, arrives. She reads the contract, noting that the contract allows for only a pound of flesh to be taken, not a pound of flesh and blood. She informs Shylock if any blood is spilled, Shylock will be killed for attempted murder. Shylock then wants the money, but the disguised Portia tells him it is far too late for that option. If Shylock does not take exactly 1 pound of flesh, and flesh only, he will be executed and his property confiscated. The Duke of Venice arranges a different option for Shylock, though. His property will be divided, half going to Antonia and the other half to Shylock's daughter. Also, Shylock will have to convert to Christianity. Shylock is ruined and is never seen again. Later, Portia reveals to Antonia and Bassanio that she was the young lawyer. Antonia is then informed that his ships miraculously returned with immense wealth. The story ends and everyone but Shylock lives happily ever after. Shylock's soliloquy is one of the most pivotal parts of the play, determining the theme of the work as a whole. It is one of the only parts of the play that sheds light upon Shylock as a human character. It also lets the viewer understand why Shylock seeks revenge. Shylock wants revenge on someone who has been very cruel to him. Shylock's character is largely the stereotypical Jew, and this scene may be Shakespeare's attempt to denounce these stereotypes. And one major theme in The Merchant of Venice is the theme of revenge and mercy. Shylock seeks revenge throughout the entirety of the play, while others clamor for mercy towards Antonia. In the end, Shylock is ruined because of his quest for revenge. Another theme is friendship, seen in the characters of Antonia and Bassanio. Antonia lends money free of interest to anyone he sees as a friend, valuing his friends over his money. Even in the face of death, Antonia does not betray or disband his friendship with Bassanio. To this day, The Merchant of Venice remains one of Shakespeare's most controversial works. Some view it as anti-Semitic material, portraying Shylock as an evil Jew and antagonist of the play. Harold Bloom wrote in his 1998 book Shakespeare and the Invention of the Human, "One would have to be blind, deaf, and dumb to not recognize that Shakespeare's grand, equivocal comedy, The Merchant of Venice, is nevertheless a profoundly anti-Semitic work." Bloom also stated the play did real harm to the Jews for some 4 centuries now. Many believe if Shakespeare wanted to denounce anti-Semitism, he would have done so more profoundly. On the other side of the argument, some scholars believe Shakespeare was denouncing anti-Semitism. Michelle Oshiro, professor at the University of Maryland, believes Shakespeare accomplished this through Shakespeare's sympathetic treatment of Shylock and his mockery of the Christian characters. She believes Shylock's soliloquy is meant to allow the viewer to connect with Shylock and understand his motives. It is hard not to. His villainy is the result of the treatment by those around him. Many have subjected Shylock to oppression simply because of his religion and treat him very poorly. Even in the end of the play, Shylock is not shown mercy, even though the Christian characters called for him to show mercy. Shylock's story is quite the tragedy. Of all the Shakespeare works I have read, this is by far one of my favorite. The plot is intriguing, and some of the comedy is truly laughable at. I personally believe that Shakespeare was trying to denounce anti-Semitism, and he did so subtly as to not ruin his career in a time where anti-Semitism was widespread. Shylock's story is a tragedy, and his soliloquy cannot be ignored for what it is. It is an attempt to show Shylock as a human, not a greedy creature.